From the Digital Media Center on the campus of Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon. This is Ramping Up Your English, an educational program for intermediate level English language learners. Here's your host for Ramping Up Your English, John Letts.
Welcome to Ramping Up Your English. Ramping Up Your English is for English language learners from all language backgrounds who have already begun the process of learning English as their second language. It's a program for people of all ages. If you're seeking greater English proficiency, this program is designed to help you reach that goal. Ramping Up Your English is a support program for English learners who have already passed the beginning stages of learning English. We take a content-based approach to helping you reach higher English proficiency. We use English to teach English. The theme of our first unit is trains and railroads. This is episode 12, segment 1. Our previous episode saw us on the Sunset Limited, a notable train from the days of the Southern Pacific Railroad that has been rescued by Amtrak. Today we again reach back to the heritage of Southern Pacific with Amtrak+Coast Starlight. When I grew up in southern Louisiana, Southern Pacific ruled the rails. This iconic railroad also dominated its own backyard, that being California. Southern Pacific offered passenger service between Portland, Oregon and San Francisco aboard the notable Shasta Daylight. This was a premier train worthy of its own paint scheme or livery. It offered passengers outstanding scenery, passing Mount Shasta and traveling along the pristine upper Sacramento River. Another premier train by Southern Pacific was the Coast Daylight, running between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Again, the schedule was set around the scenery, offering stunning views of the Pacific Ocean during the daylight hours. Amtrak saved those two routes, combined them into one train, and calls the train the Coast Starlight. This romantic-sounding train runs from Los Angeles to Seattle on a daily schedule. Let's watch this video clip as we leave Los Angeles northbound on the Coast Starlight.
There's no guarantee that you'll get a sunset like this on the Coast Starlight, but you're likely to get the train ride of your life. Your journey northbound begins here at Union Station in downtown Los Angeles. This grand structure opened in 1939 and is the busiest rail terminal in the western United States. In the past, each railroad had its own station. With the construction of Union Station, passengers on Southern Pacific, Santa Fe, and Union Pacific trains could all use the same station. You can stay aboard the Coast Starlight all the way to Seattle, Washington, a journey of 2 days and 2 nights. Here, the Coast Starlight backs into the platform at Union Station. Once it stops, passengers are invited to come aboard. As sleeping car passengers, we went right to our roomettes, the smallest of the first-class accommodations.
And you can get specialty coffees.
Not long after that, the Coast Starlight eased us out of the station and began the trip up north. We looked back at LA's skyline as we listened to the announcements.
Lighter. There are hundreds of you and not hundreds of us working the train, so your assistance is much appreciated. As mentioned, my name is Simon. I am down in the lower level of the observation lounge, manning the cafe area the entire way to Seattle.
We soon crossed over one of LA's iconic concrete rivers, locations for many car chase scenes in movies. Pulling out of LA, we passed the shops and numerous train sets for the regional commuter trains that have been added in recent years. Meanwhile, the dining car steward announces the choices on the lunch menu.
Or they have a creamy lobster bisque and salad combo. Those are their choices for lunch, along with their regular cheeseburgers, hamburgers.
A unique feature of the Coast Starlight is the wine tasting event in the special car called the Parlor Car. We were in the Parlor Car when we started to see this sunset over the Pacific Ocean. We returned to our roomette for a quieter view. Our train was running late this day due to a faulty locomotive. If we had been on time, we wouldn't have been able to see this glorious sunset. These were special and unique moments I was happy to share with my wife and my father-in-law. One source of excitement on the Northbound Coast Starlight is when we pass the Southbound Coast Starlight. When both trains are going full speed, you can only see a blur. This time, though, we got to see more of the sister train. This historic coastal route crosses a sprawling Air Force base. Rockets are launched from here, some of them carrying secret payloads. The coastal route pulls inland from the sea soon after this, usually arriving in mid-afternoon in San Luis Obispo. We'll end this adventure here. Watch for part 2 of the Coast Starlight's northbound journey to Seattle.
Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English. Further up the track, we'll do some vocabulary work and some if-then statements. But first, let's see what book we're reviewing today. This is a Ramping Up Your English book review. Are you looking for outstanding photography and a way to strengthen your English vocabulary? You'll have both in Seymour Simon's Book of Trains from HarperCollins Publishers. Each time you turn a page in this book, you're treated to world-class photography. One page features a train switching yard in Portland, Oregon. Most pages have written information about the picture you're enjoying and about trains in general. You'll encounter the precise vocabulary of train terminology. You'll also encounter language forms like present tense verbs and prepositional phrases. You'll see how objects are used to describe things by listing their parts. Mostly, though, you'll enjoy learning more about trains and about the various cars on the train. You're also likely to find the reading level understandable. Seymour Simon's Book of Trains is a beautiful book that offers an enjoyable way to learn more about trains. You'll have to get your own copy. I'm too attached to mine. For Ramping Up Your English, I'm John Letts. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English learners. You can watch and download this program and others by visiting archive.org/details/roguetv. Choose Ramping Up Your English from the sidebar or choose my name, John Letts. You can see this program on Channel 15 in Ashland and Channel 182 on Charter Cable. This is Episode 12, Segment 2. In the video clip about the Coast Starlight, the statement was made that if we had been on schedule, we wouldn't have seen the sunset in the Pacific Ocean. This is an example of an if-then statement, also known as a conditional verb tense. Since this communicates a condition that's not present, this is an example of subjunctive mood as well. So we use the verb phrase had been in the first part of the sentence. Let's take a look at this. Then we use the conditional form of the verb will with the verb phrase have seen. We make this part of the sentence negative by using the contraction for would not. The second part of the sentence, finish this hypothetical thought. The second statement is dependent on the first clause in order to make sense. Together, they make a conditional statement. Since the relationship describes something that never happened, we weren't on schedule, and we did see the sunset. This is an example of subjunctive mood. It's also known as an if-then statement. Although this is an if-then statement, these words come in pairs and appear in separate clauses. We often drop the word then as we did in the first example. You could say, if we had been on schedule, then we wouldn't have seen the sun set in the Pacific Ocean. This is a perfectly correct way to communicate this subjunctive idea. Just be aware that the word then is often dropped in English the way we use it in the United States. Both would be considered correct. We could avoid the subjunctive altogether by making a cause and effect statement. Since the train was behind schedule, we saw a sunset in the Pacific Ocean. But this establishes a different feel or mood. That's why the subjunctive is stated as subjunctive mood. The difference is subtle, but things get that way when you ramp up your language to a higher level. Now, if all this talk about subjunctive mood makes your head hurt, then you should know that we're done with this idea. And we're going to dig into some vocabulary work real soon. That's it for Segment 2. We'll be back with Segment 3 right after this. This is a Ramping Up Your English book review. If you want to go back in time to the very birth of trains and railroads, you want to read the book The History of Railways by Colin Heinsohn from Scholastic Books. The book's format reminds me of eyewitness books with small illustrations and ample text. English learners will find that the text is very challenging and there's a lot of text on each page. The illustrations are clear, providing the context to help readers decipher the text. Historical photos depict important events like the Golden Spike ceremony that joined the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific Railroads as America's first intercontinental railroad. There's a great amount of information in the history of railways. Readers will stretch their English reading skills, but you'll also be rewarded by a deeper knowledge of trains and railroads. Meanwhile, you'll be ramping up your English proficiency, especially in reading. For Ramping Up Your English, I'm John Letts. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English, a support program for English learners who want to increase their level of proficiency. If that's you, you're in the right place. This is episode 12, segment 3. We began our unit with some vocabulary based on what we heard in the first set of video clips we watched. Let's see how well you know these words after watching 12 episodes. Train, railroad, freight, passenger, commuter train, coal train, freight containers, conductors. We modeled using context clues and previous knowledge to find the meaning of these words. We also used a children's dictionary to find a simple definition. Freight and commuter trains. The words freight and commuter train were used as examples of words that may have been a challenge. I suggested after watching more episodes, these terms may have become clear by their repetition. And if that hasn't happened, I'll tell you now that freight means the same as cargo. In other words, freight refers to things or goods that are transported by trains. Commuter trains carry people back and forth to a place, usually within the area of a city. Commuter trains often carry workers to their jobs and then back home on the same day. They are short distance trains, like the ones we saw from the Coast Starlight as we were leaving Los Angeles. I also urge viewers to keep their own vocabulary list and to add to it. Hopefully you listed some words that kept coming up and using your previous knowledge and context clues to figure out their meaning. You may have even looked them up in a dictionary. I suspect you probably were correct in finding their meaning most of the time. You may have figured wrong at times, but that won't hold you back, because over time you find that your mistakes, you'll probably remember the correction even more than your correct guesses. Let's add some new words about passenger trains. Coach, attendant, ticket agent, departure, sleeping car, late, miss, conductor, engineer, schedule, and arrival. This list is also available on my website. Go to the episode 12 page at letscreate.org. After the video clip, we'll use some of our same strategies to find out what these words mean. We'll be back right after this.
May I have your attention, please? Arriving shortly will be train number 14, the Northbound Coast Starlight. This train will be
Between San Luis Obispo and Klamath Falls, Oregon, the Coast Starlight rumbles through the darkness, stopping at Oakland and Sacramento during the night. Most days, though, it leaves San Luis Obispo in mid-afternoon, entering a land of such sublime beauty it rivals the Pacific Ocean. On the run when we saw the colorful Pacific Ocean sunset in Part 1, the Coast Starlight was running late, allowing us to see these sights along the Shasta River that are normally hidden by darkness. These homes told us we were in Dunsmuir, an historical supply point for the Southern Pacific Railroad in the age of steam. In Dunsmuir, you can spend the night in a caboose and climb aboard an old steam engine. Apparently, some people in Dunsmuir like to use the old railroad yard as a place to walk their dogs. This is also where we got our first good glimpse of Mount Shasta. This super reinforced bridge rail was built after a catastrophic derailment in the 1980s. Just around the bend, Mount Shasta filled our view and ushered us into a winter's wonderland. You can easily sleep through the Klamath Falls stop, especially if your train has one of those highly skilled engineers who could make the train seem to float into the station. The small town of Klamath Falls, Oregon is a major stop for the Coast Starlight. They change crews here, picking up new engineers and conductors. This is where we get off the train. San Luis Obispo to Klamath Falls is a scenic utopia on the Coast Starlight, but there's more scenery to come in Part 3 of the Coast Starlight Northbound. See you aboard.
Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English, an educational support program for intermediate level English learners of all ages and all language backgrounds. Let's take a look at some of the vocabulary words we've added to our list. If you've already added these to your notebook, you'll just want to check them out. Otherwise, let's see what we can figure out. Coach, attendant, ticket agent, departure. If you know the common meaning of the word coach, that may not be much help here. Perhaps you've met the coach of your child's soccer team. You might figure that an attendant must be someone who attends to something. Maybe they attend to the needs of the passengers. If you look up ticket in a dictionary, you may find that it's an object usually made of paper that allows you to enter a place or board a means of transportation, like a train. The agent part of the term is probably a person, so a ticket agent would be a person who sells tickets to the train. You may also need a dictionary to find what departure means. That means leaving. If you're having trouble understanding the definitions in the dictionary, let me suggest you get a bilingual dictionary that includes English words on one side and your native language on the other. This English-Spanish dictionary has been a great help to me ever since my college days. For basic words in English, it gets the job done, and it could have been useful in looking up these words for native Spanish speakers. I always feel compelled to warn against too much reliance on a dictionary. Trying to look up too much of what you hear or read breaks up the rhythm of the language. And sometimes it's that rhythm that best helps you comprehend the input you're getting. It's a subtle mechanism, but a powerful one. Also, a dictionary is not that good at helping you build vocabulary beyond the beginning level. The best way to do that is to read. That's why I do book reviews between segments. Don't be a stranger at your neighborhood library. I'm willing to bet they have books about trains, both fiction and nonfiction. See how many of the remaining words you can do on your own. They're posted on my website on the episode 12 page on letscreate.org. You're watching Ramping Up Your English on RVTV Voices. And that's all for episode 12. I want to thank my volunteer crew, my announcer Bob Ayers, and I want to thank you, our viewers. See you next time on Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letts.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at letscreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/roguetv. Join us next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.